As I'm finding out, this is referred to as a whipping piano jack or a shank, hammer shank. Well, this is the hammer, this being the hammer, so this being the shank. There are these little parts on here. This is a spring that gives action to this that traps around something else to give it in the keyboard that's not here. This is the area that I'm trying to free up this stiffness in this thing. You can see how stiff this one is right here. It doesn't, there's no flex in it, so that's what I'm trying to free up. So I do have another tool for doing this that came in a set of tools I had, but in particular, this one, this little device here, actually allows me to press out the broken out stem. Pretty slick. I was wondering why I wasn't still getting proper action in the piano key when I pressed on it. Never given any thought that there was a secondary um, assembly, if you will, inside that also had a pivot point like that. So I pulled this out because prior to this, I was actually changing the tension or the angle of this little plunger, thinking that it would connect this little piece that slides up underneath here. Wasn't quite hitting this little shelf right there above that little red part. But it turns out, as I'm finding out, that the action of this pin is extremely stiff. So I'm lubricating all these. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes to do both of these, of this pair, out of 88 keys. So if you do the math, you wonder why technicians get charged or charge what they do. Forgot to point out, I mean, I can show it by just doing this. By picking up on this, it should swing down because of gravity. If you look at that, how stiff this is. I look to free this up. I'm going to try to show this action now on here. This is what you need to get. Gravity alone. This is what's needed to be freed up. I'll show you the results in a minute. Where that assembly fits, the one that I just got done freeing up, that was this item right here. It's held in place with 2 screws. I found by pressing on the key, which in the case this is a flat, number 67, by doing that, it raises the focal point of where the screw's at so I can get the screwdriver in from the side better. The other one is up inside right down through here. Right down the bottom, right down there. So I got those 2 in now to put the main assembly with the hammer on it back into place. You are looking at the broken off shank to a hammer in my 110-year-old Bluthner piano. I went online, made several phone calls. Only one person who was in the United Kingdom responded. And to get a half dozen of these, and I'm not sure if it's this plus a hammer that's still attached, and the flange that goes over here that I pressed out, he wanted €300, which is about 310 US dollars or something like that before shipping. And of course, then he went on to say, well, we're going to have to look and do some work in order to get to these things. And I went, well, whatever. So I decided to go out to my garage and look for scrap pieces of oak. These pieces originally were made out of hickory beam. It's sort of a hard maple, or one other type of wood. Probably not walnut. I'm not sure how it will stand up. Pieces I'm going to be using have been sitting around for a long time. They were in cabinets that I took apart, used for various trim pieces and so on. But you'll see one piece right here. I believe this is walnut that I shaved down to 1/4 of an inch thick. Actually put on my table saw and cut to 1/4 of an inch wide, thick. Yeah, because that's what this is. Now the profile where my fingers are attached to this sort of resemble that of a pencil. If you look at the edges here, when you rotate it, anybody has used a pencil in the past. But that's what the Bluthner back 110 years ago, that's what they did to this. Probably still to give it some strength, but to reduce the overall weight when you're pressing on the hammer, the key. can't see where it would be that significant. This is the number one position, which is a low bass. The bottom end obviously is number one. So what I did was I traced this on a piece of this, I believe, is walnut, but I also have pieces that I cut for oak. Several pieces here that I can try using and see what I can come up with for this shank, as you will. I'm not about to pay $300 for 6 of these things if I can try to make one myself in case I have to replace one again. Now, right in this point right here, this little whiter area of this is actually a piece of felt. I don't think it's cotton, but it's hard felt, and it's acts as a bushing in here that was pressed into here. And this little dark hole, that's where the pin goes that connects to the flange. That's attached to this. So actually, the part of the vertical piece here, the flange one, goes on this side. I've got a tool. I bought some used piano tools about a year ago, and one of those happened to be a press for pressing these pins out. It's pretty slick instead of beating on it with a hammer. But I'm going to try to duplicate this, so I'll have to take this piece of cotton out of here or come up with a different bushing, if you will, after I get done cutting these pieces out and finishing this. But do I need to neck this down like this pencil? No, I don't think so. Maybe lightly sand it. The only spot that I would is down in this area right here. Since it's broken off, I needed to make it an extra, about a ½ inch longer, as you'll see. But where it's critical is right on the bottom end where it goes into the hammer. I don't have the tool for shaving that down to the diameter I need. I could buy one. Yeah, it's about $39. Probably take me a week to get it. But I might just try sanding it down by hand and see if I can come up with the right ID. So on to cutting this out. This wire right here gives the spring to that hammer right there. It's up in the air because this needs to be put into if you see that blue block that's inside there, that's where this pin has to go, is right up inside that hole. But this pin, this drive pin, is not quite aligning up with a little hole in this leather block down here, right there. So I got to slide that in position, move this spring wire out of the place so that it clears the block. So in order to do that, I got to put the phone down. I hadn't done this, but somewhere in its lifetime, somebody else had numbered all these keys, which is pretty handy because it coincides with the number that was made by Bluthner back in the day for marking this flange, shank, and hammer. This is the key that I was just working on, and by pressing the wire back into place right there in the center of that blue felt, these 2 screws are anchored down right through here. And now when I press on this key, if you see this, it should float up and down just like that for that action. Before, it was skipping every other time when I was pressing on the key. It would sort of drop down without raising. Now I'm getting full action in there from freeing up those pins.